Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro New Zealand, the podcast series dedicated to exploring technology-related insights with market-leading guests. I am your host, Jamie Hall, and today I'm here with Nick Westbrook, Senior Partner, Technology Strategist at Microsoft. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of generative AI. We'll be covering its current state, some security considerations, and what businesses can do to prepare for this groundbreaking technology. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts. Thanks for joining today. It's great to have you along.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have you on B2B Tech Talk. But let's just jump straight in. Tell us a bit about yourself and sort of how you've got to the role that you are now.
Yeah, sure thing, mate. I'm Nick Westbrook, obviously, so working for Microsoft. A long history in tech. I was one of those lucky kids who never had to wonder about what they wanted to do when they grew up. Because literally from the age of like 7 years old, I was playing with computers, building my own little games and things way back when. Grew up through high school, made some money on the side by fixing people's computers and helping them, with their printers and all that sort of stuff. First job, couple of hours after school every day, looking after a small business down the road, end user compute, that sort of thing. So yeah, those sort of jobs, ended up getting more into sort of systems administration. I've always been a Microsoft fanboy my entire life, so it's always been Windows Server and Microsoft networking and all that sort of thing. Around 2012, got like a proper job at a systems integrator partner, a Microsoft exclusive partner, which got me much more into the ecosystem with Microsoft and getting more of a relationship going. Ever since I was that 7-year-old kid, I weirdly I had this goal of joining Microsoft one day because I've always loved the technology, as I said. So I ended up doing a lot of sort of Azure architecture and M365 migrations, engineering, all that. And then, end of 2018, managed to land a role at Microsoft.
How exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, Senior Partner Technology Strategist is a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
But it doesn't sound as technical maybe as some of your previous roles. Is that a true reflection? Or?
Sort of, yeah. So it's an awesome role, right? I honestly love it because it's that bridge between technology and business, right? So I essentially day to day understand the latest Microsoft technology myself and then go and help my set of partners, with that technology. So introduce them to new tech, help them get up to speed with it, build that capability, and then help them address market opportunity with that. So helping solve their customer challenges by using Microsoft technology. So my partner's success is literally my success. So it's a really great relationship, and I love the role.
That sounds really cool. And so, what does the day-to-day look like?
So lots of email, lots of IM. It's very much a big time communications role and orchestration. So as mentioned, it's understanding what those technology challenges are, presenting new solutions to my partners, working with their technical teams to upskill them. We've got other resources at Microsoft, like subject matter experts in our solution architect team. So I can bring some solution architects into the conversation as well and get them to actually, do the real work, and the hands-on upskilling and support. But I'm that guy in the back, sort of coordinating, getting the opportunities going, and then ensuring that our partners can execute well, in market, working with our sales teams at Microsoft to help solve customer challenges with the value of Microsoft Cloud.
Great, and I'm sure that technical background probably helps with that interrelationship with solution architects and understanding partner and customer needs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've done a lot of pre-sales work in my life as well, so I'm great working with sellers. I'm great working with the technical people, and with management as well. So it's this really great sort of role that goes in between all those different personas.
That sounds really cool. So today we're here to talk about generative AI, which I think is a really
exciting,
hot topic, and exciting it is. But there is so much hype around it as well. It's one of those ones where you're just hearing it everywhere. There's a lot going on, and there's absolutely no denying its power and potential, right? But it's one of those things where I think there's a lot of noise around it, and probably missing some of the tangible outcomes at the moment from some of those messages in market.
Yeah, 100%, right? So, I mean, GenAI is pretty much still brand new. I mean, depending who you talk to, you can argue, it's been around for a little while now. AI itself has been around since the 50s, so it's got a really, really long history. But what really changed is that moment in November 2022, right, when ChatGPT got released to the public. Up until that point, AI was very much behind the scenes. So every time you watch YouTube or Netflix, that next show that it's asking or suggesting for you to watch, that's based on AI. When you're in Facebook and you're looking at your social media feed, that's all AI presenting what it thinks you're interested in. So yeah, very much behind the scenes, right? Whereas when ChatGPT launched, it was now front and center, and us as humans could interact directly with the machine through the most natural interface there is, being human language. Right. So I remember using it for the first time myself, and I was blown away. It's almost like there was another human on the other side, responding to me, answering my questions, reasoning with me. It was magical. Right. I think a lot of people saw the light at that point, that this truly has great potential. Right. But as you said, the intangibleness of it, it's like everyone's feeling that it does have great potential, but what can I actually use it for today? So I think there's a lot of organizations out there still trying to work out what those golden nugget use cases are.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it should be amazing, and in large aspects it is, but it's actually applying that to people's day-to-day lives, to improve their own productivity or drive business outcomes.
There's certainly still a mindset, even though it's natural like language. There's still almost like a mindset shift to make to really get the most out of it. I think that is potentially where I think some people get stuck and just probably need to push a little bit further through it.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's probably a temporary thing as well, right? So I mean, as the AI gets better and better, it's going to get better and better at working with us as well. So I mean, you can see some of the hallucinations that were quite prevalent in the original versions of, like, say, GPT 3.5, for example. A lot of those have gone away to a large extent, right? And when you look at, trying to compensate for some of those erroneous answers that may have originated in the past, an approach would be to ask the large language model to explain itself step by step, or take a broad picture view of what it's trying to achieve and then take me through this problem-solving process to actually get the answer at the end of it. As you look at new models like OpenAI's O1 that's just been released, that's incredible, right? So that's literally a reasoning engine. So when you're interacting with that model, you don't need to tell it to take you through a step-by-step, because that's what it does.
Yeah,
right?
And I love that you can see the reasoning and see how it's going. I know it's not word for word, it's summarized, but it's still incredibly powerful. And I think that's a really, really good point. And I know it goes without saying, but the advancement, the rate of advancement is staggering. And we've heard Elon and Jensen both call out that the rate of advancement is like nothing like any other technology or anything else before. Going back to kind of a business context, what do you think this rapid progression kind of means for business?
Well, it's that potential again, right? So, I mean, there's multiple stats and research that's gone into this. One of the ones Microsoft's been across is we see that generative AI has the potential to add, I think it's about $76 billion, to the New Zealand economy within the next 10 years. So that's a incredible amount of money, incredible amount of value that GenAI can give to us. But the problem is we're only going to get there if people adopt it. So if there's a really slow rate of adoption, then we're going to get a percentage up to that total amount. If it's a really fast rate of adoption and we're all in and we're really taking advantage of this thing and updating our business processes and reinventing the way that we do things and really leveraging the power of the technology, that's the way we get to that potential much faster.
Yeah, and I want to come back to adoption rates, particularly in New Zealand. But before we go there, I just want to touch on Copilot specifically, because we're talking about the rate of advancement.
Yep.
But Copilot, and what I've been personally witnessing, has been advancing at the same kind of rate.
Yeah.
And it's been incredible. It's been incredible to witness.
It truly is. Yeah, I mean, to think that the product's not even a year old. It's like it went generally available in November last year, right? So it's less than a year since its general availability, and it's already almost taken over the world, and improved the lives of so many people, like my own included, on the day to day. And the progress it's made is incredible, as you said. Now, I think we've released 150 new features literally since January this year.
Wow.
So the product, when it went GA and the product today, is almost completely different. It's advanced so much, and the roadmap of it is incredible as well. So up until this point, it's been very much a personal assistant, where I ask it a question, it gives me result back, or I ask it to do something, it does it for me, right? Coming up very soon, we're going to have this concept of team co-pilots, where you can actually have a co-pilot acting as a member of your team and then attending the same team meetings that you do, and allowing itself to be, say, like a project manager, on a team, or a salesperson on a team, or a sales assistant, for example. And then this concept of autonomous co-pilots coming up as well. So that literally got announced, or originally announced at our Build conference earlier this year, but with the Wave 2 announcement for the Copilot capabilities a couple of weeks ago, that's actually now available to use. So you can literally have a Copilot act on your behalf and run business processes on your behalf.
That's really exciting, because I think there has been the gap in some of these, right? You can have a conversation, it can provide you with some detail, but actually being
doing
part
stuff,
of the
right?
solution.
Exactly, yeah. So it's incredible. I mean, you can think in just a couple of years' time, all of those manual business processes that we have today, you put a Copilot against each of them, and they just kind of run themselves.
Very exciting, very exciting. So I'm going to go back to adoption now, and PwC and Deloitte both have conducted studies very recently, and we will have them in the description for this episode so that people can have a look and a bit more of a read. But Deloitte calls out 52% of New Zealand employees have engaged versus 62% in a McKinsey study from a global ranking perspective, right? So if we think in New Zealand at 52% versus the global at 62%, it appears like we're lagging behind. And when you look at Asia Pacific, in that same McKinsey study, we're ranked 7th out of 9 countries in Asia Pacific. Why do you think that might be?
Great question, right? And this is a huge one that goes probably to the heart of New Zealand culture. It's difficult to say, but New Zealanders tend to take a very cautious approach to adopting new technology that they haven't developed themselves. All right. So typically, we've had that DIY, very strong DIY culture, number at Y mentality, some incredible innovators that this country has produced, but they typically tend to produce things on their own. All right. I think New Zealanders have a hard time reaching out for guidance on how to do things properly, all right, and taking advantage of that best practice that may develop overseas. So yeah, it means that we tend to stand back a bit and let others take the lead with technology adoption, so that maybe they can make the mistakes first, and then we less at risk by watching what's going on around us. And then when the technology is matured enough, then perhaps only we start adopting it more, with the right compliance and processes and rigor around it. Once those frameworks have been more fleshed out, more developed, which is great in some instances, right? It does reduce the risk, but it actually introduces another risk of us being left behind. Because if you think about those other countries you mentioned, like a lot of those Asian countries, they're very much at the forefront of technology. Less regulation to deal with perhaps, and they just try things out and fail fast. And that fail fast culture is okay. Whereas I think in New Zealand we have a bit of a problem with failure, where we're always wanting to try and make sure that what we do will succeed. The problem though is that, if these other countries do overtake us with AI adoption, it means that, the businesses that they have in those countries can produce products much more efficiently, by leveraging the new technology. It means that they can serve their end customers a lot more efficiently, because they're spending less man hours, trying to actually produce that outcome. And these days, international boundaries are very fluid, right? If you've got a customer in any country wanting to purchase a product or a service, they'll typically go to a service provider that makes the most sense for them. And if those service providers are outside of New Zealand, because they can offer a better product at a cheaper price, it means that New Zealand business is going to get overtaken, right? And then we're going to, become more or less significant, to the populations around the world. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And again, we've got that figure. I think it's $76 billion of GDP potential, for GenAI to bring into New Zealand. We're only going to achieve that amount of revenue if we adopt AI at a pretty accelerated pace. Okay? If we're laggards and we're waiting another 5 to 10 years before we really take this seriously,
It's going to hit our economy, right?
Absolutely, it's going to hit our economy. We're never actually going to achieve that number. So I think it's on all of us to learn all we can about generative AI and AI in general, and help each other as well. Businesses helping other businesses, and even in our personal lives, talk to your mum about it, talk to your kids about it. Let's all, try to raise the tide on generative AI awareness and the potential it has to improve things around us.
I think it's a really interesting scenario because we pride ourselves on being innovators. We pride ourselves on kind of being early adopters in a lot of the technological sort of side of things. But there's another element that's kind of slowing us down, I think, and maybe that's to do with our number 8 why mentality, right?
Yeah, exactly, mate. It's like that number 8 why mentality, and that strong DIY culture that we have in New Zealand is incredible for driving our own homegrown innovation. Think about all the incredible innovation that we've had in this country. It literally stems from that. The challenge, though, is that in taking that DIY approach and wanting to do everything ourselves, we often ignore the opportunity to learn from best practice.
Yeah.
If there are experts out there who know what they're doing, it's often a lot easier for us just to reach out to them and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can we work together on this? What is the best approach for me to adopt this technology in order to get the best outcomes, rather than us trying to work that out ourselves? So I think that's one of the challenges that's involved in this.
Yeah, and I want to quiz you a little bit more on that kind of readiness side, and I'll come back to that. But I'm going to take a slightly different shift and focus a little bit more on security for a moment. Cyber and data security on its own is a super hot topic, and it's a huge growth area from a business perspective as well, not only in a cost perspective, but from a partner perspective and supporting the need in that space. But in the context of GenAI, what factors do you think that businesses should be considering when they're kind of factoring in their wider security thought process?
Yeah, so data is gold, right? AI uses data as food. That's the way it produces the great outcomes and answers for us, right? What all the bad actors out there are looking at getting at is your data. Right. They don't necessarily care about your systems or using your servers. I mean, there's certain scenarios where they want to, mine Bitcoin or something using your servers, but for the most purposes, they want to get access to that data so they can hold you at ransom for that. So as a first step, you want to make sure you know where all your data is and that you've sufficiently secured that data to make sure that it's not accessible from anyone who shouldn't have access to it. So there's a lot of ways that you can go around doing that. First step, get some tooling across it, move that data into the cloud, because that's typically more secure than trying to store it yourself somewhere. And then, catalog it, put some data governance around it to make sure that only the correct people have actually access to that data, so that you're securing it from the outside world as well as knowing who can use it internally in your systems.
And I think from a generative AI position, there's different versions which have different protections in place by default as well. Do you want to maybe talk us through a little bit about some of the differences there with some of those models?
Yeah. So, for example, it depends whether you're kind of rolling your own or whether you're using an off-the-shelf product. All right. So if you look at something like Copilot, it's automatically inherits all of the protections that you have across your data already, right? So in using Microsoft Copilot, say for Office 365, it's not going to present any information to you that you didn't already have access to. Okay, so that's a very important nuance to keep in mind.
We've heard some funny stories about that as well,
totally.
Right?
People finding out the boss's salary or who got dismissed last year for whatever reason, for example. The truth is, if Copilot is telling you that information, you already had access to that information, whether you knew it or not. So it's really important to use tools, say, for example, with us, we've got Microsoft Purview, which is a great tool to actually allow you to discover who has access to what data. On the other side, if you're building your own tools, then that data security is essentially up to you. Or if you're using a third-party tool, you have to make sure that you're trusting that third party and they've got enough rigor in place around data protection, to produce the results that you need, as well as keeping those guardrails around it.
Yeah, and being mindful of, I guess, what you're feeding some of those more publicly open models.
100%. I mean, there's an old adage that goes that if you don't pay for a service, then you are the service, right? So keep that in mind. When you're using a lot of these free tools out there on the internet. Whatever data you're putting into it, oftentimes the owner of that service or tool is able to use that data for whatever purpose they want.
Now, we talked about adoption rates before and maybe New Zealand being a little bit behind. I did some research and I found Portland's Institute study that talked about New Zealand cybersecurity and our ranking against in the globe, right? It is a little bit outdated. It was 2022 to 2023, but we were ranked 56th in the world. And to put that in context, compared to Australia, that was 15th. They were 15th. So I did a bit more digging and found a more recent from the same institute. They've renamed it to the Network Readiness Index, and we were in a better position, to be fair. But between 2023 and 2024, we actually dropped 4 places and went backwards. So again, in the context of GenAI, does this make New Zealand business like more at risk, do you think?
Totally right. I think for a lot of our history, New Zealand has relied on our isolation, to try and give us some protection. A small island at the bottom of the Pacific, who's going to want to come here and actually steal our data, or who's going to try and attack me, infiltrate me, for example. The thing is, online, the bad actors don't care, right? There are no boundaries on the internet. Everyone is a fair target. Okay. So unfortunately, again, part of the New Zealand culture is this whole she'll be right sort of attitude, where it's like, you don't want to scare the horses and talk too much about cybersecurity or your defenses or whatever, because you don't feel it's really necessary. Okay. And that's absolutely not the case, right? So, I mean, we've got some stats from our digital defense report, showing that I think it's 70% of all attacks are against small and medium businesses, so businesses with less than a few hundred employees. So, that's obviously a worldwide stat, but you can see literally from that, the majority of New Zealand businesses would be in that statistic, right? So unless they actually protect themselves using efficient cyber defense strategies, again, they're just kind of sitting ducks. And it's important not to try to do that yourself as well, right? There are a lot of experts out there who can help New Zealand businesses with that. So don't take the DIY approach, number 8 wire, let's string this together and I think I'll be okay. It's critical, if you value your business data and your ability for your business to execute well, that you protect yourself going forward.
With this Deloitte study, it also talked about university students at a staggering rate of 74% from a usage perspective. So, if you think about New Zealand's adoption rate or from a wider perspective, then you're looking at the youth. There's clearly a lot using it. So I think it's fair to assume that there's going to be lots of people using this regardless of whether businesses are prepared or not, or have a policy in place, or have the right protections in place. So, I mean, from a context of Microsoft and Copilot, what's Microsoft's kind of position there?
Yeah, 100% right. So, I mean, younger people are always more keen to adopt new technology than older people, right? So that's no surprise to me. Where it gets a bit pointy, though, is that when those younger people are in the workplace and they've been using these tools in their school life or outside of the office, they come to the office and they don't have a proper way of leveraging generative AI tooling within their workday. Now, what do you think is going to happen? All right, they're going to bring their own tools into the business. So we've got some stats, I think, from our Work Trends Index report that shows that of all the people who are using generative AI in their day-to-day business life, over 81% of them are actually bringing their own tools into the office, to use, which means that is not governed. The business doesn't even know these tools are being used.
It's a huge IP risk.
It's massive, right? So you've got people in the business who are potentially uploading sensitive private information into these generative AI tools. And who knows what's going to happen with that information. As I said, especially if they're free tools, then the data that you're putting into those tools is the product. And that's how the owner of that service is generating their revenue. So it's pretty scary. Right? So, if you don't have a approach at the moment on what tools you are sanctioning to actually allow your business users to leverage this capability, it's a huge risk. So pick some tooling and put it in place and let people use it.
Yeah,
it reminds me back in the old days of cloud storage, where like it was the same sort of process, right? So people wanted to have documents available on the cloud or between home and their office or whatever, but there was no real sanctioned way to do it. So all sorts of tools were being used, and it depended on the individual person, whether they would prefer to use Dropbox or Box.com or Mega Upload or iCloud or whatever. There was all these tools around, and that was before. It's with M365, OneDrive is kind of the place to put things. Well, as soon as the businesses start adopting M365 more and they had OneDrive as the sanctioned proper place to do it, then suddenly you can put all these guardrails around it. The business knows where their data is. You can manage it and govern it going forward. And you just remove all these other third-party tools that the business doesn't really know about.
Security risk.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that leads us really nicely into the sort of the readiness side of the conversation. And I was recently at the Dell Technologies World Conference, and they had multiple keynotes referencing an innovation catalyst study that they put together. And they were calling out a stat that really stuck with me, which was 81% of organizations that they surveyed agreed that they had to make changes to their infrastructure or their data storage before being ready to adopt AI. Mm-hmm. That's a large portion of business, right? So, I mean, what are did you have any basic steps that you could maybe share that might help organizations get started?
Yeah, totally. I mean, data sprawl is a huge challenge, right? And obviously the AI tooling can only reason over your data if it has access to it. And again, we don't want it to just be able to reason over everything if the person using the tooling shouldn't have access to that data. So there's multiple steps you need to put in place to make sure that your data estate is in the right shape to get the best outcomes from generative AI. So steps you can take. Firstly, you need to catalog your data. Find out where it is. Is it stored on local servers under someone's desk? Is it stored in various third-party applications or whatever, right? Some great tooling that you can use to do that. Again, Microsoft Purview is an awesome tool with some great capabilities to help you discover where all your data is. Once you've discovered it, to get the best value out of it, you really need to move that data into the cloud, because that's where all this great capability with AI resides. Okay, so migrating it into, say, M365, if you're using that service, or into Microsoft Azure, for example, allows that data to be more easily accessed by these large language models. Thirdly, you want to make sure that it's secure and governed. So again, check who has access to it, what are the permissions on that data. Only grant permissions where it's absolutely needed. Use capabilities like information rights management to encrypt the data, and only allow it to be accessed or used in certain ways, so that there's no way of it escaping, the bounds of your business. And once you've got all of that in place, it really sets you up super well, to be able to leverage the power of AI against that data to, improve your business processes and give you the insights you need to really help you drive your business forward.
Awesome. And with NZ North online soon, how does that help support New Zealand business and kind of their enablement? Because sometimes I think people kind of see that as a complete separate thing.
Yeah, so very, very exciting. New Zealand North, just about to open. I think we announced it 4 years ago, when we were all in the middle of lockdown. We had the Prime Minister on TV on the 1 p.m. bulletins. I think we all remember those. And she announced to the country that, Microsoft was open for business, and bringing a hyperscale data center, well, not just a data center, actually a hyperscale region, right, which comprises 3 separate data center facilities that we got. And that was coming soon. Right, so that was 4 years ago. Fast forward to today, and we're actually here. So we're planning on launching into general availability in December. So that's literally a few months away. And we've got a handful of customers actually helping us test it right now as well. So it's a real thing. It's right here. The benefit for New Zealand is that now we have this awesome capability of hyperscale cloud that used to only be available offshore, now right here in Aotearoa. So it's onshore, all your workloads that were geographically sensitive, for example, that weren't allowed to leave the country, or that latency would have been too high, to be able to access the data or use these systems outside of the country. All of those challenges are now gone, right, out the window. So you can really leverage this incredible capability right here in New Zealand, with all of the great protections around it that Microsoft brings to bear, and hyperscale cloud available right here.
Yeah, and we love our Australian cousins, but
we do, yes.
But it's nice to have something turning online in New Zealand.
Oh, totally. And I mean, those 30 odd milliseconds from Auckland to Sydney it doesn't seem like much, but for some workloads, it's really a killer. You can't do that. So we've had a lot of interest from a lot of businesses really looking forward to adopting hybrid or hyperscale cloud within New Zealand.
It's exciting. So the mainstream reseller channel is clearly gearing up right now, and some are ahead of the curve, others are somewhere in the middle, and there's others that might be avoiding getting started or getting up to speed.
Yep.
What are some of the key resources that Microsoft has on hand to kind of help partners at any of those stages?
Sure. I mean, there's a ton, right? From us at Microsoft and from you guys at Ingram. You do a fabulous job. You've got such great, knowledge and resources for your partners.
Well, thanks for giving our team a plug, because
That's
we've got a very experieed team on that side.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me more about the resources.
From a direct Microsoft perspective, obviously for upskilling and getting more awareness around new technology, Microsoft Learn is the place to go. So learn.microsoft.com. Everything you need about all of our products and how they work is available there. If you need more business guidance around how to run your business or your practice, your Microsoft partnership more effectively, we've got the Microsoft Partner website, so partner.microsoft.com. You can head there. We've got solution plays. We've got sort of sales sort of battle cards. We've got a lot of guidance around how to effectively execute through the sales stages, information about our funding programs. All of that is there to help you actually execute well in your IT business, right? And then we also have the Transform website as well. So
I was waiting for you to mention that one.
Yeah.
I saw someone show a demo of this live the other week, and it was amazing to see like the whole end-to-end experience with basically a stand-up environment. Everything was there, but it's just web-based.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. So the Transform website, if you haven't seen it before, you can head to transform.microsoft.com, or there's the specific customer digital experiences, the cdx.transform.microsoft.com. I'm sure we'll have these links in there.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the links in the description.
100%. So you can go there, and there's actually a whole set of demo environments, right, that you can leverage to show your customers how specific Microsoft technology works. And it ranges from full-on lab sort of environments that you can spin up and literally jump in there and do hands-on real sort of demo work, right through to more scripted demos or click-through demos. I think that's similar to the one you were talking about earlier.
Yes, the one I saw was called Unleash Creativity.
Yeah.
And it basically talked about you had two screens. You'd have a dual screen setup. You'd have instructions on one screen. You have the demo and live environment on the other.
Yep.
And you can literally walk people through like a co-pilot GenAI experience.
That's it.
Without having to have licensing and all that other bits.
So I mean that one's simulated, right? But it looks completely real.
Yeah.
Like you click in the same places, and it takes the customer through the experience of leveraging the products. And you don't need any technical knowledge in how to do it. There's no setup required. You just literally follow the step-by-step instructions, and it shows you exactly what the result is, from using this technology. So many resources for you to use, but definitely have a look around those websites, and they should cover all the bases you need.
We'll definitely drop a whole lot of links in the description.
Love it.
Now we're on to the final part. So the final part, 5 and 5 we call it.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah, so 5 questions. But you have 5 seconds to answer, not all 5, just one at a time. So I'm going to ask them the same questions for every guest, so no surprises. But here we go. So the first question I have for you is, what book, app, show would you miss the most on a deserted island?
So app, definitely the Copilot app on my phone. Love that. Plug, exactly. No, I mean, literally, it answers any question I need without me having to do any research.
Awesome. All right, next one. Your favorite movie featuring AI?
I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so there's so many options, but I think the most poignant one is that movie Her, with I think it's Joaquin Phoenix, who kind of falls in love with his AI co-pilots.
It's quite confronting, that one.
It is, yeah. I mean, when I first saw it ages ago, it seemed like far in the future, but it's crazy to think that that's literally now.
Yeah.
All
right, next one. What does your social media algorithm think you're obsessed with?
Oh my Lord. Cleaning products, which is totally random. Like whenever I go on there, it's showing me how to get rid of mold.
Okay.
So many different products. Yeah.
Maybe that's a question for another day.
I don't know how that got there.
All right, next one. What piece of outdated tech do you miss the most, and why?
Honestly, my Windows phone. I loved it. I think it was a Nokia 930, in the mid-2010s. And I just loved that interface. The Live Tiles interface I thought was incredible. It's such a shame that platform never got broader adoption.
Yeah, I ran a Microsoft phone for a little while there. Did enjoy it, to be fair. All right, last question. If you could share one game-changing productivity tip to save time, what would it be?
It's an old one, but delegation. Except now what we can do is actually delegate to AI, which everyone can do. So again, that Copilot app on my phone, it's rather than me spending an hour trying to research which product is better or where I should go on a holiday or whatever, literally just ask the AI what you want and then it tells you. It is incredible. And with the autonomous agents coming up soon as well, you can delegate complete business processes to those. Right? So that means that you don't even need to do them. Right? So I think that's quite a mindset shift that a lot of people need to make. Rather than you having to do the work or using AI as a extension of what you're doing, AI can literally replace what you're doing, which frees up so much time for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome,
It's been
no
awesome
worries.
to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks to Microsoft for sponsoring this episode. If there are any guests or topics that you would like to see featured, connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll find the links in the description. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.